reviews for some of you that could not join our session last time. So first of all, we have been talking about what is leadership, and why are we talking about leadership? Is there any new aspect to leadership that we don't know of? And why should you be interested? Most of you guys will become freelancers or are freelancers already. So the session was around, well, what are your thoughts about leadership? How does it differ from management? And then we talked about self-limiting beliefs, that it's time to change, to go beyond those self-limiting beliefs. We talked about women versus men and how they differ from each other. We then talked about the new world as we experience it today after COVID, right? And how some changes, in particular remote work, is going to stay. And we talked about leadership as such, in general, and the different leadership styles. We talked about authoritarian leadership, participative leadership. We talked about delegation leadership, transactional leadership, transformational leadership. If there's any question as to those that are still remaining, feel free to write them into the chat. I wasn't able to answer those last time, as you will remember, because I did not have access to the chat. But if you have any remaining questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat and I will answer them. We then moved on and we talked about leading others. What are the different components of leading others? So communicating effectively, influencing others, managing people. We also talked about the leadership journey, the outer journey, which is mostly what companies offer and organizations offer and our society offer us, namely mostly a transactional experience whereby it is clear one gives the other something and the other person gives the other something. So there are some reciprocal performances there, and the inner journey that oftentimes get lost or don't get addressed enough, including emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and systems or ecosystem thinking, which are aspects of the inner journey that people should go through and should grow into, so as to optimize the use of their own skills and the knowledge of their own skills, and which is something that people just tendentially do not do. What else did we do? We went through the leading self then, because we went from leadership to leading others to leading self, and we talked about the different aspects of leading self, the increase of the own capacity to learn, being a self-starter, setting vision and strategy, synthesizing, the ability to maintain relationships, the ability to take risks, goal orientation, so measuring the ability to define the success and measure progress towards the success, the customer's focus, and the ability to be on top of their mind. So that's leading self. Then we went through the missing competencies, the fact that we need to know what competencies we have and what we don't have, and how to get access to those competencies that we don't have but should have around us so that we can offer a more comprehensive service. Further on, we talked about the USP, the unique selling proposition. And within the USP, we talked about how to find it. So first of all, what is it? Then how to find it. So what we love to do, what we're good at. And also, well, we understood that between what we love to do and what we're good at, well, there's a sweet spot, and that's where our unique selling proposition lies. We then tried to identify our own USP. We moved on to understanding what networking is and how it's important for our sustainable success as a freelancer. We talked about the power of reflection. And as to that, we talked about the importance of getting feedbacks from customers, of understanding what we were able to do, what got particularly appreciated, where is there room for improvement, where did we identify our own gaps in terms of skills, and also how to get better at what we are doing. That's part of what we did as well. That's the power of reflection. We talked about failure and how failure is being treated in our society. We talked about the power of sharing failures. And also we came to the point where we said, well, okay, we have now been through this journey together. Well, now what? What are the steps that we are going to take tomorrow so as to become better leaders of ourselves? And once we did that, we were actually ready to address part 2, which is today's session. So my question to those of you who were able to attend last week's session, do you have questions remaining, or shall I move on with part 2? Yes, John.
I think for me, you can move on. Thank you.
Okay. Great. So today I suggest that we focus our effort in understanding intercultural work, and in particular Western work ethics. But what I'm going to say in the course of this session will be applicable in any intercultural business relationships. But I think it's very important to go through it. There are aspects that will be very much known to most of you, others that will be new, and others, and in particular, I think overwhelmingly, what you will encounter is points that you probably don't give the same importance to as would the businesses that you would interact with as freelancers. So the reason why I have decided to opt for this route is that I believe in empowerment and leadership, there is a lot of resilience that is being asked to have, and there's a lot of voicing that is being required. And within this umbrella of skills that are required, we need to know how to use these skills so as to build long-lasting relationships with our customers, so that the customers get back to us in the future for further services to be rendered. Moving on, I would like to start with an intro. And I would like, in particular, I will ask you a couple of questions. In general terms, this will be a very interactive session. So I will ask you questions. Please feel free to answer in the chat, or ask further questions or building on questions in the chat. My question is, the first one is, why are you here? So have you joined this class today? Why are you in the sourcing program? What is your goal? Just type in a couple of words that come to mind. That would describe the reason why you are with us today. Okay, so this is an interesting one. I like it a lot. Okunola, can you describe what you mean by independent? What is independent for you? And all the others, please also participate. Okay, that's very good. Also excellent, John. Fantastic. Very nice. Yeji, that's perfect. However, we shall not call it soft skills because actually those are the essential skills of the future. Everything else will ultimately be automated, you know, Yeji. So it's not really soft skills, it's most human skills and business skills. You can just, you know, rewrite the history of this word. Most of us use soft skills, but it is not really applicable anymore. Philip. Okay, great. This one is also very interesting. I'm going to note it down because we'll get back to it. High income skills. Good. All right. So I will combine this with Yaji's description of soft skills. You know, guys, soft skills, this will be actually the high income skill of the future. Let's give it 5 or 10 years and we'll get to the hard skill that is called soft skill today. So let's call it human skills or business skills because those will be the high income skills of the future. Everything else with the digital developments and the tech developments will be automated, will be taken up by the technologies that we will have in place. So, all right. So guys, this is great. Excellent insights. So maybe also another question would be, how would it look like if this training block organized by SourceIn would be successful for you? So how does good look like at the end of this training block of 2, 3 weeks or 4 weeks? And why do you think this course that you are attending today is important? Yeji, you cannot hear me. Can others hear me? Okay, all right. But can you guys hear me? Yeah, sure. Okay, I will repeat it. But Yeji, if you cannot hear me, maybe this is on your end because others can apparently. Okay, all right. So I'm going to move on. So the question was, if you feel you have learned a lot in the process of these training blocks and mentorships, why do you think that this will lead you to the successful experience? Why would a training or a mentorship with SourceIn be successful? Which is to be deferred from your goal, right? Why are you here? Why are you here is your personal goal. But if you go through the process of thinking about the different trainings that you will go through or the mentorship, what would be a recipe for success for you in terms of what the learnings, the acquisition of new knowledge? Ah, great, Yashi. Very good. All right, maybe this is a tough one to ask, but it's important, very much important, because let me say it this way. Time is important, and we'll get to it in a moment. Time is a very important factor. It is important for your customers, but it is very important for you too. And time is precious. We have very limited time. It's actually the most precious resource that we have in our hands. And if we don't know why we are in a meeting, then we shouldn't be there. And if we are in a meeting we should know why we're there. What is our goal and what do we want to take out of the situation? So it's very good already what you have written on top of this chat, but it would be even better if you could tell me how good would look like for you. So that means projecting yourself in the end of a process, looking back and thinking about, well, it was good because, and it was not so good because. So that's actually the projection, the ability to project yourself into the future is very, very good in terms of knowing why you are spending time in a particular setup. Yeji, this is very, very good. Excellent. John? Also very good. Excellent. So what I suggest is, whatever you define, Okunola, don't really know how to go about it, so this training will help me achieve some of the skills needed. Very good. So it's very important that you keep these sentences with you throughout this session, but also the other sessions that you will go through within the Source in training process, because every time you go to a session, keep in mind what you are saying here. Keep it in mind and go to those sessions with that intention. And if you don't get what you wanted out of the session, then give that feedback, because you have to know why you are someplace and why you want to work with some customers, right? It's the same setup. You choose to work with a customer. It's not only the customer that chooses to work with you. And once this relationship is being established, it's a two-way street, right? So you also need to know why you're working with this customer. It's not only to earn money, there's more to it than that. It needs to also bring something to you and enrich you so that you can be even more performant next time you give a service to someone. All right, so let's move on. I want to talk briefly about reputation. Reputation is a big word. It has a huge reputation, and is being interpreted differently according to the different cultures that we are dealing with. Foremost, it's a matter of respect. And it's a matter of respect to yourself first, to your people, and to your counterpart. Because your good reputation will impact how much business you will be able to do, how much business relationships you will be able to build, but also people around you that will benefit from your reputation. And ultimately, this will impact the entire workflow, because more business will come in because the reputation will be good, right? So it can have a whole lot of impact to have a good reputation within the business world. It's very difficult to build. It holds long-term benefits that outweighs the short-term benefits and impact, right? So we want to look into the future and know that we are building that reputation bit by bit, and this will have a long-lasting benefit on our career, but also on the career of people around us. It's also easy to destroy, though. So for those situations where short-term benefit outweigh the long-term impact, well, those reputation will be probably destroyed easily. There will be an experience that is less pleasant in that respect. So self-empowerment and self-leadership closely impact the performance and therefore the reputation that you will have. This is why this course or this session and this mentorship is important. Because if you feel self-empowered, if you feel like you're leading yourself well, then this will impact immediately the performance that you will have as a freelancer and therefore your reputation as a workforce. Is there any question as to that? Oh, I missed an interesting comment. I will write myself off when it comes to. Very good. Tolope, excellent. This is good. Keep these inputs with you with every class that you go through to, because these statements are extremely important for you to know why you are attending a particular class. Is there any question as to the topic of reputation? If not, I'm going to move on to time management. Great. All right, time management. Within time management, or the concept of time, you have work time and you have leisure time, so free time. Within work time, you have time online with your clients, and you have time offline where you produce the work. Now, I'm going to ask you a line of questions. Please answer into the chat. How many work activities do you do currently every day? Can you state, is it one? Is it null? Is it two? How many are you juggling with every day? And the next question, two. Is there somebody who has three? Two. Interesting. Very interesting. So you guys that say two, the people that say two or more have right now already a portfolio career. Tolulope, you will soon have one, as soon, if you're not a freelancer, as soon as you will become a freelancer. So those people that have two paths already, these guys, they're already having a portfolio career. Now, add to it a freelancing career, and Tolulope, this will soon be the case for you if you're not already a freelancer. Well, this will build quite a broad portfolio career. Now, my question to you is, how do you organize yourself? How do you organize these different activities? How do you build them into your day? It's not easy to organize yourself. I can imagine that this is not an easy task. Interesting, Nafisa. What I adore in this chat is you guys are very honest. I'll get back to this point later. It's very good that you are so transparent and honest. It's actually excellent. It's really good. So you're working on being organized and working based on schedule, Nafisat. Okunola, I got to my 8 to 5 p.m. work daily when I get back. Oh, this is very studious. You're like me. My goodness. We need to be a bit mindful of not becoming workaholics here, but yeah. Okay, very good. Any other input? If not, the next question is, how flexible are you? So in particular, what do you understand by the word flexibility, and how flexible are you, and in terms of what? Your time, your content, how are you flexible in your work life? And do you think it's a good thing? That's interesting, Yeji. Similar for me, though, I must say. Similar for me, John. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. All right, so calmly and efficiently. That's how you work, Tolupe, I guess. Yes. Are you flexible? Do you think that I can say Tolupe is a flexible workforce? Can you state that in your freelancing profile? Okay. Interesting, Nafisa. Do you know the niche that you want to be facing? Flexible you are, Yeji. Interesting. Yes. So, content creation. Okay. Okay. And do you think flexibility is a good thing? Yes. So Nafisat, your yes is probably okay. Okay, very good. Okay, yes. All right. So let me tell you a couple of words of how. Well, John, wait a minute. I'm going to read John's first. It's important, but one needs to plan these things. Doesn't hand if I have two, John. Okay. So in terms of flexibility, let me give you a couple of words as to what flexibility means for, in particular, the Western population. People in the Western communities like people to be flexible, in particular in terms of availability and accessibility. So it's important to be actually always there if the client wants you to be, and available when the client needs to speak to you. However, there are limits to it, right? So if you have scheduled an appointment, then this makes sense. So the flexibility in the scheduling is very welcomed, but leaving one customer to serve the other and get back to the first is not a flexibility that is appreciated by the clients. In particular, because of their priority as to the punctuality and the timeliness. So flexibility in terms of content would be excellent. So for those of you who plan on having a portfolio career where they, build up on their skills and offer several skills to the market, this is an excellent intention. Flexibility in terms of easy to schedule meetings is also excellent. However, too flexible and too available raise concerns on the other side as to the reliability of the person and as to the trustworthiness of the workforce. So it needs to be taken with a little bit of prudence and a little bit of cautiousness. It is not always very much accepted or appreciated by the Western cultures to offer too much availability in a too obvious fashion and in such a way that potentially you might not be on time with some other task while you are, devoting some flexible time to some task that came in spontaneously. In that respect, spontaneity as well is a concept that is taken with a lot of cautiousness by the Western businesses. Spontaneity is not necessarily a type of flexibility that is being welcomed so well. So while it is a great trait to have in the private life, it is not necessarily appreciated in the work life. aside from the few rare jobs that are very much tied to creativity. That's true too, John. John is saying conflict of interest will not be a good thing when trying to make flexibility work. This is very, very true. Okay. Is there any question to this, or shall I move on? Because our next topic is reliability. And this is a big one. Okay, great. All right, so reliability in terms of performance and in terms of appearance, online and offline. So do you consider yourself reliable? And how do you define reliability? What are the components that define reliability? Environment and success. Reliability. It's interesting. Why do you say environment? And why is success reliable? Tell me that. I would be very curious to know. Okunola, reliability to me is being able to trust someone to carry out a particular task. Okay, so that's content-wise, right? Nafisat, I consider myself reliable because I always try to satisfy my client's specification and sometimes go out of my way to get things done for them. It's very good. It's very good. So from what I hear from you guys, it seems that you perceive reliability as an advantage, right? It could be, you know, to some degree, reliability is not necessarily aligned with flexibility. Reliable is not necessarily, you know, the same. So somebody who's very flexible might not come across as very reliable. So these two terms are not necessarily always matching well. Tolopi, the environment in which we find ourselves working in and the probability of success. Yes, so this is true on many levels, in particular the first one, the probability of success. There, I'll get back to it as well. This is all the aspect of making mistakes or engaging in an activity and, you know, failing at it. Maybe we should take up on that topic again. It's important to go through it, but I'll get back to it. Yeshi, to me, reliability is being consistent and being able to meet customer needs. Consistency, very important. Being able to meet customer needs. John, reliability to me means that I can be trusted to handle things even when an employer or a supervisor is not available to monitor me. Yes, very good and extremely important as freelancers. I see it as a way to also make me responsible. I am not perfect, but I can say I make efforts to be reliable on any job so I can take responsibility where I have to and where you can. But it's really, really good. So let me give you a glimpse of reliability in terms of how it's being understood, again, by the European cultures, the Western cultures, so that it gives you an understanding, yes, and where you can. It's very important to observe this with a little bit of cautiousness also on your end. What I'm going to try to explain is really how it's being understood in the Western cultures. This is, of course, differing and there are overlapping sides. So sometimes you'll think, well, I understand that, I can think alike as well from time to time, but other times you'll think, well, this cannot be that important, but it is. So let me give you a little bit of an overview, and this will take some time so that you get an understanding of how it's looking like in these cultures that I'm oftentimes, dealing with. First of all, reliability is closely tied to trust in work relationships. So a reliable person is considered as a trustworthy person to a great extent, not to a full extent, because the performance is also important. The nature and the quality of the performance is also important. But being reliable is a great part of the trust that can, the trusting potential within work relationships. And within that, we have communication. And within communication, we have the technological side of communication, we have the vocal side of communication, and we have the body language. All of these aspects of communication are extremely important in order to build trust and to look and feel reliable to the counterpart. So, for instance, fluent and frequent communication is important. You should always prefer to communicate one time too many than one time too little. So always more advantageous. Also, yes, exactly. Also, the good internet connection, the good microphone, these are extremely important parts. So I know that you guys, for instance, are much more relaxed about that because I observed it with you. You have sometimes excellent internet connection. Femi, for instance, has always brilliant connection. Today was an exception. He has excellent microphones. Today was also an exception. But this is not necessarily what we observe constantly, right? So an excellent internet connection, an excellent microphone to speak clearly is important. Also, it needs to be within a calm environment. There shouldn't be any noise in the background, right? Any cars or any traffic. So ideally, you would close the windows and you would be really in a silent, calm environment, calm space, so as to be able to clearly interact with your counterpart as a freelancer, right? You will have only those couple of meetings to align and to get the instructions for the next steps. So this environment needs to be super calm and enabling you to focus fully. Then the calm voice is important. When you speak to your customers, you need to be very calm and very patient and listen, because that will enable the customer to feel at ease. People like to talk. People like to speak. And so you need, as a freelancer, to let them speak. And you need to listen to what they're saying and write down your notes so that you know your customer well. And you know what he wants. And then you can deliver on that. So the calm voice, the calm behavior, making breaks, making stops in the talking so that the other person can think. Thinking takes time. So people need time to think about what they want, and then they need time to express themselves. And the same goes for you. So you take your time. If you don't have an answer to the question, don't answer it. If you don't know, say, I don't know. I don't know, I'll get back to you on this. These are very valued traits. The honesty that is behind it is extremely valued. There needs to be a good light so that people can see your face. So while for instance, I'm going to give you a for instance. In some cultures, seeing people is not required. I'm working with, right now I'm on a call with 11 other people than me. Only I have the camera on. Well, you see, this is in the Western culture, or in the cultures that that we call Western or European or Occidental, well, it's important to see the face and to look into the eyes. These are traits that are very important. Less important, for instance, in the company that I work with, where there's a lot of Indians, and these Indians, colleagues of mine, they don't need to have the video on as well. They also don't require that. They don't need that. Well, this is important for the more Occidental cultures, the more Western cultures, because that is part of being transparent, and that also opens the door to trustworthiness and reliability. Further on, when you communicate vocally, you need to articulate well. So whatever you say, please make sure that those words are well articulated. So the use of language is also important. So while you articulate well, you always need to be courteous and not too personal. Ideally, your English is good enough that everybody can understand you well enough so that you can express yourself with ease. These are all aspects that are more on the vocal communication side that are extremely important. The behavior, the calm voice, that's more the body language, calm gestures, right? Don't gesticulate too much. The good lights, that's more the technological part. The good internet connection, good microphone, more the tech part of the communication. The next big one is transparency and honesty. So we've touched upon it. People in the Occidental cultures like transparent people. They like honesty and straightforwardness. They appreciate that very much. They don't appreciate cowardness, and they don't appreciate people that are not acting in an appropriate manner or that cannot be courteous or polite. That's for sure. So however you interact with them, exactly, transparency and honesty. So however you interact with them, it needs to be always polite and always straightforward. So whatever critical thought that you have had, it needs to be communicated. Whatever better alternative that you have in your mind, that needs to be communicated. All of this will generate a sense that, oh, we can trust this freelancer. This guy or this girl always tells the truth. She speaks her mind, and she even suggests, or they even suggest alternatives to the situation that we are offering them. And that person thinks with us on bettering the situation within, a certain topic that is being addressed. Also, amongst the different types of honesties, you have also the honesty as to the mistakes and the failures. So let me give you an example. In the company that I work with, I mentioned earlier, you have some good percentage of Indian population, which is a different culture, of course, with the Occidental culture. And one thing that I have observed is, well, when things do not go well, they have a tendency to disappear. So suddenly, they're not available. You cannot reach out to them. It's difficult to discuss those topics. You don't know what happened. I'm coming to you, John. You don't know what happened. And you're wondering, so you're trying to imagine what could have been the reason why you cannot reach out to somebody. So it's closely linked to losing face. Because when we make mistakes, or when we perceive our actions as failures, well, it's an ego matter, right? A matter of ego. It's difficult to admit what happened. It's difficult to admit that something did not go as well as we had hoped. And also it's difficult to admit that while we were so secure about our skills, well, in this particular matter or in this particular situation, unfortunately, well, it did not go out. It did not come out so well. However, it is all a matter of how you do it. So it's all a matter of how you communicate that, well, right now it's not going so well, or right now you're facing a particular challenge, or right now, well, you have to admit this effort did not turn out as well as predicted or as hoped. And this will trigger immediately the sense of, oh my God, how can we help this person succeed? This is a very natural human reaction. Human beings are actually inclined to help wherever there is an issue. It's not about admitting to be a failure. It's about admitting to face some challenges in succeeding in a particular setup, and also suggesting ways to address it. So maybe you can say, it did not work out so well. It's probably due to this particular aspect. Could you help me with that? And otherwise, I'm going to try this alternative. Do you think this is okay with you if I would try this alternative? Do we have time? Do we have budget to address another alternative? I'm so sorry. And these are all triggering a lot of human reactions of empathy and of feeling to want to help. And this is also true with your customers. It's not only true with friends. It's not only true with colleagues or with family. It's also true with customers. And it is a sign of transparency and honesty, and therefore reliability. Now, John, to your point, some of the time, culture influences some of the actions we take as per body language and what is interpreted in the European world. As Nigerians, most cultures do not allow for us to look people who are older than us in the eye, but that is a suspicious action if I do that with an European. They see looking into the eyes as a way to garner some level of trust too. Exactly, John. So it's exactly what I meant. It's very different from cultures to cultures. The way people interpret a body language differs. However, if you guys want to engage in business activities with the Occidental Western world, just know that, it is more important for people to look into your eyes and see that you are reliable and trustworthy than rely on the cultural aspects that require from you to be more respectful towards the elderly, because that respect in the Western civilization can also be manifested by the way that you speak to the elderly or to the older or more experienced people. You can also speak in a way that actually shows that you show respect, that you owe them respect, and that you feel that respect towards them. But you can do this with your words. It's more important to look them into the eyes, look them into their faces. And it's more important to even have your camera on to begin with. That's more important so that they can see you. All right, that's for that. So now the next big one is keeping our word. Keeping our word and say what we have said that we would do and be where we said that we would be. This is the next big one, keeping our word. It's extremely important in the Occidental Western world. And we even have this has also impregnated the way that we approach project management too. So within project management, for instance, you have this concept of delivering on time and on budget. So if you think about it, this means that you will not be late, that you will actually have done what you said that you would do on time, at the time that you said that you would have done it. So it's literally keeping your word as in the purest sense of the terms. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put this into the context of scheduling. Recently, a good friend of mine said, it's a friend, but it's also a colleague. He told me, well, I'm going to pass by your place if I'm in Zurich sometime soon. So this sentence is very telling. While it's a wonderful statement, and I very much welcomed it. He's a good friend as well. You cannot do this in a business context. So the spontaneous actions like this one are not they're not advisable. We should always say what we will do and act accordingly. And we should always promise if we can deliver and not if we are not sure. So better say no than say yes and not deliver. If you say yes, which is much more advisable, but then make sure you deliver. So delivering includes also being there. When you say you will be there, be there. If you say that you will do something, do it. This is very important. Another thing is saying, I will send it to you and not send it. It's also not very advisable. So all these aspects that are typical for business relationships that occur all the time are very, very important to the Occidental civilization, the Western civilization, much more than in other cultures. It's extremely important to them in the ranking of priorities, keeping the word. And within that is, scheduling the meeting first. So my friend and colleague who was telling me, I will just pass by. This is disconcerting for a person in the Western civilization. Those guys want to know when and how long and what we will do during that meeting, right? Otherwise, let's not, because they have other meetings scheduled. I would like to stop here because the next ones are, yes, they're kind of connected, but I would like to see if there's any question as to what has been mentioned so far. Otherwise, I'll move on. I guess not. So I'll move on. The next one is accessibility. We've talked about flexibility. I would say within the umbrella of flexibility, accessibility is even more important. So being available when needed by the customers is very important. So the way to do that is, again, by enabling an easy scheduling of a meeting with that person. It's important to say, of course, let us meet. So these are my availabilities. It's not appropriate to say, yes, let's meet. I have time now. Not necessarily. Sometimes it works. Most of the time, people in the more Western cultures will ask you for your availabilities. And then ideally, you would give them the exact availabilities that you would have so that people think, oh, okay, this person is also busy like I am. So let's try to find the matching availability where I am available and this person is too. It shows also some seriousness in the way that we schedule our meetings and in the way that we get organized and in the way that we manage our time. John, I think an explanation when there's an issue is important, but if it happens all the time, trust keeps waning. Yes, yes, that is true too. It is true too. It shouldn't be all the time. Some response to Timothy. Aha. What if you promise to deliver and the unexpected happens? What do you do? So the general answer to Timothy that I also always called Yeji, so I'm sorry for that. I didn't read your name properly. I'm so sorry. So as the ground rule is, if you promise to deliver and the unexpected happened, you say so. Just say it. That's the ground rule. Say it with the honesty that comes with. And say it rather early than last minute so that maybe an alternative can be organized. And to John's point, yes, it's true too. So if it happens all the time, which is not to be expected. I mean, you guys will not fail at delivering all the time. Let's be honest. It's sometimes a mistake happens, or sometimes some other priorities like sickness will happen, but you will not deliver all the time. If it is the case that it happens in a recurring fashion, then yes, this will have an impact on your reliability and the trust that can be brought to you. But otherwise, more often than not, this will be circumstantial, and you will be able to openly talk about it, ideally timely enough so that an alternative can be organized. Yes, Okunola, communication is key. Now I'm a bit confused because you guys have sometimes, so John has his first name on first, but some of you guys have the first name inverse. So I'm not sure whether I'm addressing you properly. But in any case, yes, communication should be key, and open communication is the key, definitely. Now, we have come, so I mentioned the accessibility and availability within the schedule of yours, your organization and people's organization, but it's also linked to being and appearing organized, right? So it's about the look and feel as well. When you have a relationship to a customer, it's just like when you buy a new product. When you buy a new product, you want it to be comfortable to use, intuitive to use. It needs to be fluent in the experience, right? And the same goes for being and appearing organized and reliable. You need to appear, look, and feel organized so that people can say, oh, this person knows what she's doing. I can rely on this person. This person will deliver on time, on budget. It's going to be perfect. So the look and feel of the exchanges that you have with your counterpart as a freelancer is very important. It also shows self-empowerment and self-leadership. So this is why it's here. The other one is, of course, the punctuality. So when you say that you will be someplace at some point in time, then be there. And also, if possible, if the customer comes up with a change in schedule and their timetable needs adjustment, which is oftentimes the case, you will encounter them often, then working around the customer's timetable is always advisable to the extent possible. However, not always. Saying no from time to time is also okay if you have other meetings or other deliverables scheduled in your timetable. And that brings me to the next point. The delivery on time is very important. It's even more important than, I would say for the Occidental cultures, delivering on time is even more important than delivering comprehensively, not fully, but comprehensively. So you can say, I can deliver and put a smaller milestone, but make sure that you deliver on time. That's more important than if you say, I can deliver this much at that point in time and not being able to deliver. And then say, but I could deliver then 10 days later on the bigger portion. It's more advisable to break it down to very, very small mini milestones, and then being able to deliver on those mini milestones, than having the big chunk of work, but then not deliver on time and be 10 days late. The first one is more advisable than the second version. And the agreed quality is important. So if you deliver a service, make sure that the quality matches the expectation. So maybe one thing that you can do is actually ask your customer, how can I be of help to you? How can I help you? What can I do for you? And then we get back to the communication and the listening skills, right? So listen to what the customer says, take notes, ask questions, ask questions. Asking questions is key. Ask questions and make sure you understand your customer well so that you know what quality is expected and you know whether you can deliver on it and how you can deliver on it and how much time it would take you and how much it would cost your customer, right? So all of this is important. It's very important because that is definitely impacting your reliability and then your reputation as well. And finally, to get back to Timothy's points and to John's point, I would like to get back to the mistakes and the failures. If you make a mistake and you show the next time that you have learned from your past mistake that you have made with the same customer, then you show growth. And if you show growth, you show reliability and trustworthiness. So it's extremely important to also go through that route because it's a relationship, right? You're building a relationship with a counterpart. It's a human-to-human interaction. So psychology is key. If you admit you have made mistakes, you reflect on your mistakes openly, and then you show that you have learned from your mistakes in the future or from a mistake in the future, well, then it's all fine. You show growth, you show reliability, you show trustworthiness, and you're good to go for the next service round, right? So it's really important to engage with what society unfortunately still calls failures. And sometimes we make mistakes, and our mistakes. Just engage with it actively so that you can share your reflections, understand the feedback, share your reflections, and then show your growth in the future. This is definitely something that is being appreciated in the Western cultures and the Western civilization, including the European. Is there any question that remains open as to reliability? Timothy says no. Anybody else? I'm good, John. And the girls, whatever your names are, I don't see you. Wait a minute. Do you have questions? No. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So this is a toughie. Thank you. No. Okay. The next one is motivation. Motivation is a tough one because it is very much differing according to the different cultures and the regions on our planet. However, it is so important that I decided to allocate some time to it. All right, so within motivation, you have extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation, right? Do you think that you respond better to extrinsic or intrinsic motivation? Maybe as a sub-question, what makes you perform better? What makes you perform longer? Is it extrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation? What do you think? You can just write extrinsic or intrinsic into the chat. Eben Oluva, both. Timothy, intrinsic. Maybe as a build-up question, what do you think will impact customer satisfaction more in the type of delivery that you will produce? It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one. Mm-hmm. You actually are all very right? So it's John, both work for me, but I love doing or performing a task because I feel I will enjoy it more. Intrinsic in that case. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you one thing. I will speak about myself so that this is at least you get also my view. The extrinsic motivation is very short-lived in my case. I don't perform sustainably with extrinsic motivation. It's short-lived. Maybe at first, and then it dies out pretty easily. However, intrinsic motivation is really what gets the motor going. However, and nonetheless, we don't say no to extrinsic motivators either. So, Ebonoluva, when you say both, you are totally right as well. Totally. We don't say no to extrinsic motivators. We never say no to that. That's not the point. Helps always helps. You know, it's a little bit like the cherry on the cake to have also extrinsic motivators. But for sustainable performance, to be able to really give our best in our work, we really need to be intrinsically motivated. Otherwise, it won't work. It won't work. You will not be successful in the long run. This just doesn't work, in my view. It's a personal advice that I give here. But if you are motivated, really intrinsically motivated in what you do, you manage your time better, you're more reliable, and you are much more open about what's happening because you really want to be good at what you do. It's a personal, intrinsic motivation to be good at what you do. And this is why when we talked about the USP, John, you will remember, I know that John, you have been with us last time. For the others, I'm so sorry. I couldn't see the list because I was sharing my slides. But we have talked about the USP, and one of the bubbles was what you love to do, and the other bubble was what you are good at. And we said this, the sweet spot for identifying the unique selling proposition was the intersection between the two. That's where the sweet spot is, namely where you're good at and what you love to do, what you love to do. And so this is the core of intrinsic motivation. You have to love what you do, or at least really, really like it. Otherwise, you cannot perform sustainably. You will do it once, twice, and then after some point, you know, after a certain degree, level of complexity, you will just not be as good at delivering. And so to be able to deliver on a high level and plus over time, you need to find a way to be intrinsically motivated by what you do. And so choose the area of activity as freelancers well, or also as a working area at large for also the offline performance. So choose the area of activity well. Choose it well for yourself. You will feel much more self-confident, much more self-empowered, and you will be able to self-lead better. So it's very important. Spend the time necessary to find out what you really are motivated in doing. And as to that, showing genuine motivation include what we may have mentioned, a good time management. It inevitably leads to reliability. It withholds also the ability to be at the top of your game. So once you have identified your area of action, be sure that you are the best or one of the best offering that. Be sure of your skills and complement them to the extent necessary. Part of what gets deduced or is the consequence of intrinsic motivation is also knowing what is the demand as to the services that you want to offer, that you have identified you're intrinsically motivated in and that you want to offer on the market. Well, what's the demand, the nature of the demand on the market for that service? What is the particular focus, the emphasis that is being, granted by the potential customers that you will have or that you have already? Then know your target markets as well. There are certain markets that are much more inclined for certain services than others. Know those markets, identify them. Also, not all customers in a particular segment or in a particular industry will want those services. Well, make sure to know your target customers for that particular skill set. I'm going to give you a for instance. A math teacher in second grade might be great for the children at 2nd grade and less good for children in the 6th grade or 7th grade. Because for multiple reasons, because that person is less interested in that age range, right? Because that person has more of a kinship with the youth, with even younger people, younger human beings, because the communication is easier for that person with younger students or younger school boys and girls. It could be because the skills are better for 2nd graders, 1st graders than for 6th graders, 7th graders. So there are so many reasons. Identify the target customer segment. It's very important for your service. For those of you freelancers, this is an example that is even valid for freelancers, right? For you guys freelancers that want to teach in your freelancing classes, teach younger people than you. Make sure you identify the right target customer segment. Then know what the competition does. That's part of the intrinsic motivation as well. You need to understand, well, wait a minute, where am I ranking here? What is the competition doing? What am I not yet doing? What am I doing better? It's part of selling yourself. You need to be able to sell yourself at some point as freelancers, right? So how can you sell yourself? What is the part that you offer that others do not offer on the market? And what do others offer that you can still complement your skills with so that you can offer it as well? It's very important to know what the competition does. Always screen what the competition does. Also, it's important to anticipate what your existing customers will need, for those of you that do not have them, and need for those of you who already have them. And part of it comes from listening. So you can also have, you will have multiple, follow-up calls with your customers during which you will always be able to ask questions and always build up on the past discussion and ask further questions as to the different deliverables. It's important to know what the customer wants. Oftentimes they don't know what they want. So push them into telling you what they want, right? Ask those questions. What would good look like? What do you need? What would good look like? Are questions to be asked to customers prior to aligning on the deliverables, so that you can actually have the customer open up to their own needs and their own desires and their own reflections, so that you don't come 2 weeks later with a deliverable that doesn't match the expectation. John, does one become extrinsically motivated for the sake of achieving a task first? Yeah, it's just that it's very short-lived. So an extrinsic motivation can be good, for instance, for a very, very brief task. Very brief task. It's a one-off, for instance, that it's only one time. You're just helping out. You're just, on this one project that will enable you to access. There is another question before it, just above it. How do you manage to be intrinsically motivated when there is a lot of pressure from your bosses or client or employees? Because you are. This is not a question that you ask yourself. Intrinsic motivation is something that you know that you have because this is something that you feel within you. It's like love, right? You know that you love. Nobody can pressure you into loving anybody or anyone or anything. You know you love. So it's an intrinsic motivation. You know that you are motivated in doing something or in being active in a certain field or knowing more about a particular range or domain of activity, field of expertise. And the extrinsic motivation is really only a one-off, I would say, or maybe 2-3 times, but 3 times is already too much. It's something that is short-lived, and it's something that is not necessarily leading to sustained performance or sustained success in your performances. The last one that I would like to mention is the proactivity. So the push versus pull. This is also a cultural one, which makes it very important for us to address. So, for instance, I'm going to give you a for instance. The company that I work with currently has a history of adopting a pull strategy. They wait until the clients come and ask for their services, and they say, of course we can deliver, and they deliver. They deliver brilliantly. They deliver brilliantly. However, does it show motivation? I don't know. Maybe to a certain degree, yes, because they deliver very well. Does it show intrinsic motivation? Not necessarily, no, not necessarily. A push approach from time to time shows proactivity. A push approach in an existing relationship shows anticipation of needs of the customer. A push approach in an exchange, a proactivity in an exchange also shows that you are capable of showing who you are to the market. You can say, look, I have this to offer. I'm super motivated in doing that. Do you need it? Or even better, you identify a potential customer on the market. You really make the research about a certain aspect that concerns your domain of activity and the service that you would like to render. And then you contact that client and you say, you guys have probably this problem according to my research. I am offering this. For this price, I can do that. Would you be interested in a first exchange, an initial conversation around this topic? You don't even have to say how much time it will cost you or how much money it would cost them. Actually, you can even just say, I offer these services. Would you like to have an initial exchange around it? That's much more a proactive approach, shows a lot of motivation, and is oftentimes, according to the way that it is being done, always polite, always courteous, not too intrusive, is actually well received. You can use social media to do so. LinkedIn is perfect. You can also approach them in a different way, but in any case, proactivity is a valued asset if you know how to use it in a non-intrusive manner. Any question as to motivation? How do I measure my competitors' success in order to perform better? So sometimes it is openly publicized. So in particular success stories, which is also something that you guys should do, by the way. So when you achieve success in a particular setup, please make sure to publish a small article, a small comment about that success on LinkedIn, on your profiles. Make sure to post it someplace so that people see that you have achieved success in a particular setup. It could be a very small one, but make sure that you speak about your success stories. It's important for your reputation, to build your reputation over time. Now, competitor success can oftentimes be, accessed online because people like to speak about their successes oftentimes. And if you look online, you will see what others do. You see their rating, you see the different customer relationships that they have been able to build, you see what they have been doing, you see their posts, their comments. You can identify a lot of their performance on the basis of what is being available online. However, you can also observe them and how they act. You can have a session with them, for instance. So you can also ask for their performance so that you can assess what they're doing and how they're doing it. For those particular cases where you have most doubts about and where you're really thinking, oh, these guys are really good. Maybe I should get inspired from them. Maybe I should look into how they're doing this. And otherwise, it's about identifying how they're doing, what they're doing online, and then wondering, well, how can I do better? What else can I offer for sure in a reliable manner that is not being offered in this type or in this version by others on the market? Any other question that you guys have? All right, so we're coming to the second of an end. So it's a couple of questions that I still have in terms of this session today. Can you guys write into the chat what are your key takeaways? What did you learn during this session, and what did you learn about yourself during this session? And for those of you who were present last time, what have you learned about both the sessions, last time and this time? And also about yourself. John, for me, a knowledge of different cultures can help with reactions to events and situations. Apart from those as well, one needs to be punctual, trustworthy, and be motivated to give the best at all times. It's very true. The different cultures, it's in particular in the details, right, John? I mean, sometimes it's really about how the different cultures prioritize topics. Right? Something that is less important, also important, but less important in a particular culture can be very important in another one, and vice versa. So it's interesting to see that. And it's also very important to note it down and know how to act when we are facing those cultures. It's not easy to because for those cultures, when we're dealing with them, it's so clear. They are bathing in those priorities, and in those rankings, so they know exactly what is important to them, and it might not be as simple and as understandable by other cultures. So, for instance, one topic that I haven't mentioned because we didn't get to it this time was the topic of hierarchies. So there are really cultures that are super hierarchical, where you really see it also reflected within the companies and within the corporates. And it is really important to have a certain hierarchy, and then, to address people in a different fashion according to the level of hierarchy that they have. And in other cultures, it's a bit less important. And then you have details that, you did not expect. So for instance, in Switzerland, hierarchy is not necessarily the top priority. It's important, but it's not very important. So that means you are almost surprised, which is happening to everybody, when you are facing, coincidentally, a person that actually really responds to hierarchy. And so even within one and the same culture, sometimes the priorities rank differently according to the person you encounter. So it's challenging enough as it is. It's important to at least understand the ground rules so that we know more or less how to orientate ourselves, right? Avon Oluva, communicating with a customer constantly on deliverables helps to build reliability. Definitely. Fluent communication, open exchanges, rather one time too many than too little. Very important. Intrinsic motivation goes a longer way than extrinsic motivation. Yeah, that is definitely a key takeaway. Yes, if you can take that one with you and make something good out of it, it will be amazing. Because that will make you also happy personally throughout your lifetime. I think it was Einstein who was saying, do something you love and you will not work a day in your life. So it's really important. Timothy, I learned in both sessions the following: how to deliver on time, how to manage my schedules, how to work with the Western cultures, how to identify my USP. Amazing! This is amazing. My goodness, you're good. Super cool. And if you have any question or anything remaining open in your mind, please make sure to reach out and to ask those questions also ex post. Tolope, I learned how to express my success without bragging. Wow, this is cool. This is powerful. This is very powerful. This is so powerful. Humility. It's key. Very nice. Yeah, very nice. This is interpreted by Western cultures as being a sign of personal growth and inclination for personal growth and professional growth. It's super powerful. Okunula, I learned more about the European cultures. More to me as an African, I cannot look into older people's eyes. Yes, I need to start looking into their eyes and not seeing it as a sign of disrespect. Definitely. They will appreciate it because everything is about the tone of your voice and the language that you choose to speak, the words that you choose to use. It's all about that. I also learned that intrinsic motivation goes a long way. Yes, definitely. Yes. It's important to always communicate to our clients, irrespective of the situation. Super important. Being fluent in the exchanges, it's really a sign that we can trust you or the businesses can trust us or whatever. I mean, we can trust you. It's ridiculous what I just said, but businesses can trust us. I'm actually a person who did not live by this rule. Maybe I should take my own example. In 2016, I have been told that, I wasn't communicating enough. And I was so surprised because my tendency is to be communicating a lot. So I was very surprised. And that person who was my mentor at the time, he was a designated mentor for 3 months. That person told me, Muge, you know what? Just say it again. Even if you don't think that you have told it to me, just say it again. Make sure that I have heard it and then move on. And there will be no issue. And I did that. Since then, I'm doing it. It came across as such a surprise when I heard it the first time back then. But I'm really applying that rule of thumb, and it helps grandly. Philip, proper and fluent communication, maintaining good relationships, motivation, being proactive, identifying unique USP, and also positioning oneself for opportunities. Yes. And if you have further questions as to positioning yourself for further opportunities or for new opportunities, make sure to reach out because it's not always easy to know how to position oneself. So there was also the other question that was being asked. So how do I know what others on the market do better than me so that I can also, become better? it's important to know how to position oneself on the market. So if there's any question also to the others, make sure to reach out. And a last question as to these sessions that we have been through would be, what will you do differently as of tomorrow? And it's the last question that we have for the day. So it's also an answer that you can take with you. Tolupe, I really need to improve my level of productivity by learning new things daily and also keeping improving myself in what I already know. This is a very wise one. We all need to do that. And before you do it, make sure that you allocate your energy wisely. We all have a very limited energy. And it's important to be able, in order to be productive on the long run and to perform well on the long run, we need to be able to allocate our energies well and to manage them well. So make sure that you spend your energy on things that really motivate you and that you would like to actually offer as services to the market. There you can invest as much energy as you want, but within the portfolio of your own intrinsic interests, and not allocating time to discovering everything and anything and getting lost and not moving forward. Because what we really would like for you guys to be able to do via SourceIn is to identify what you really have your heart burning for, so that you are able to sustain yourself financially by doing freelancing, even if it is the only activity that you have, right? So it is important to spend time to really identify what you love and what you're good at and what's your unique selling proposition and how you can maintain that intrinsic motivation by nurturing it. Timothy, I will publicize my success more on LinkedIn. Very good, with much more confidence. This is excellent. John, how does one self-motivate most of the time? How does one? Some of the time you want to get things around you off your back, but they find their way into the mix while you are pushing forward freelancing. Yeah, we all have that. We literally all have that. I have so many admin tasks and operative tasks that are absolutely not rewarding from a personal point of view that I'm also undertaking next to the other activities that I'm pushing forward and that I love doing and that I'm intrinsically motivated in doing. So self-motivating yourself for tasks that are not so interesting is difficult, and it's difficult for everyone. And maybe be it only for those tasks that we all have in our plates and that we have to tackle. The extrinsic motivators are the ones that we need to, hold on to with the latest of our energies. But it is really not an easy task to motivate yourself for things that are actually not relevant for you on a personal level and intrinsically. I understand that this is a challenge. I don't have the key for that. It's really definitely there that the extrinsic motivators that we mentioned earlier are actually the ones that we hold on to. Philip, I can now identify opportunities initially being ignored before this course. Several ideas are flowing into mind recently, which I think I need to explore more learning opportunities to increase my level of productivity and professionalism. This is very good. So if our sessions have enabled you guys to be more motivated and have stimulated your minds, then we have gained a lot from those couple of hours that we have spent together. I'm honored to read these sentences. This is really, really good for me to read them. This is an excellent feedback. Okonola, we'll be more time conscious, also need to improve creativity level. We'll start making good use of my LinkedIn account and publishing my small successes, look into people's eyes without fear or of disrespect, but hoping they trust me in return. That's for sure. So if you engage with the Western culture a bit more, you will see that people just look into your eyes all the time. They look at your face, look into your eyes. They like to see you. So you'll see that they will trust you more for that, and they will talk to you more for that, and they will exchange more often with you because they know whom they're dealing with. That's actually their priority, understanding better whom they're dealing with. And I find it beautiful that you say being more time conscious, because it's really the most valuable resource that we have in our hands. It also describes how we use our energies, right? If we use the same level of energy over a longer period of time, then we're more effective with our energy allocation than if we use the same amount of energy within a short period of time. John, for me, I will keep doing the things that help me keep others engaged on my posts and messages on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and even on WhatsApp. That's very good. At least I can keep writing, getting videos up once in a while and all. I also have to explore the many platforms and places where I can learn from others. The opportunities I have now, if I had them years before now, I know I would have been up there, but I can still try and make that bold step and hope I have the good ending to tell. John, definitely. It's first of all, it's never too late, but mostly we're all still very young. And when you say these things, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, WhatsApp, these are so many social medias that you are active on. This is amazing. And you can, yes, leverage them to position yourself on the market, to tell to the world who you are, what you have to offer, and why you're there. And so definitely make use of these opportunities, and definitely make use of your time wisely to push yourself forward and become visible and not be afraid of anything or any remark that might come across after you engage with the people. It's actually the best thing you can do. We all try to do it. It's difficult for us all, and we are all more or less good at it. And you know what? Even if you take influencers, people that we call influencers today, these people are only good at some parts of getting visible. They get networks, yes, but only within, a certain degree of interest, right? It's very narrow. So what you're trying to achieve here is much broader and much more impactful for yourself. It's very good that your intentions are going in that direction. I support that fully. And if there's anything I can do to support you, let me know. All right, guys. So we're coming to a close here. What I suggest that we do is let us make sure that we get some feedbacks from you, from all of you participants. Wait a minute, John, it is also important to push aside negative energy off your back. Many are just after making you feel less of yourself. You do not give them that opportunity. Definitely. So this is unfortunately human race, right? Some people like to make other people feel less good about themselves so that they can feel better about themselves. And so it's a very natural reaction that we should definitely ignore. It's a human vice. It's a negative side of the human race to do that. And it's nothing new. It's actually probably initially a defense mechanism that human beings have developed to protect themselves and their lives, and to protect to remain alive in society or in life. But it's a very bad trait of human beings and of the human race that we should definitely actively ignore. And it is negative energy, and it is not relevant. These people that speak today are not relevant. The people that support you are relevant, and the people that listen to you and see what you have to offer are the ones that are relevant. All the others are not relevant. So, as a last word, first of all, thank you so much for having participated. For those of you that were there also last week, I would like to really say thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you. This time was better for me because I could actually interact with you guys. Last time was less interactive for me because I was sharing my slides. So this is wonderful as it was today. I would upkeep this. So you guys did not see slides, but I could actually listen to you and see what you had to tell me. This was much more productive in my view. Let us make sure that we exchange feedback. So feedbacks are very important also for us to know what we can do better. So I would like to engage with you in that one last step. If you could, via Google Classroom or via Femi, let us know whether you liked these 2 sessions, what you liked with these 2 sessions, and what could be done better next time. It would be great, because then we would integrate those feedbacks and improve or adjust our sessions. For the slides, yes, let me think about it, what I can do. It's actually something that I don't necessarily like to share, but I'll think about it, and maybe I'll share some of the most important ones with everyone. Any other questions, the last questions that you guys have still? Yeah, well, you know, I'm glad that you're saying that, John. I tried to make them be good. You're most welcome, Evan Oluva. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, Femi, I think we're at the end of this session. Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm very much here.
Okay. So thank you also for having set up this meeting and for organizing all of this. Femi is at the